listening to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Welcome to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. This is Dr. Charles Laux, episode number 85 today. And I have a great guest all the way from the state of Washington, from Seattle, Washington. Everybody, this is Christine Gero, and she is the Orchestra Director at Roosevelt High School in Seattle, Washington. Welcome to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast, Christine. Great to have you here. And we chatted actually for a while at Midwest. And we're like, okay, we just kept going. It's like, I wish I could have recorded that conversation that we had at Midwest in December, but now it's January and we're so glad to have you on. So thanks for being here.
Oh man, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So it's okay. We have technical blunders happen all the time.
All the time. Right. All the time. I always say Seattle, home of technology, or not.
That's right. So you are at Roosevelt High School, and I know you've been there for a while. Tell us a little bit about your school and your program that you've built.
Well, actually, I didn't build it. Roosevelt is in existence. Man, I think it's 102 years now. Mm-hmm. For a long time, it's a huge public school system, right? It's a city public school system. And for a long time, there were two schools that were considered arts magnets, two high schools, and it's Garfield High School and Roosevelt High School. Okay. So, just a huge, long-standing tradition in. We're known a lot for our jazz program.
Oh wow!
I want to say maybe 26 of the 28 years or something like that, that our jazz band one has been selected for the Ellington competition.
Oh, wow.
They've won 4 times. I think Garfield is pretty much the same, also has won 4 times. But also both schools have been touted for a very long time for their orchestra programs as well. And theater programs. I mean, we really have it all. It's
comprehensive.
Yes. I mean, yeah. I joke a lot. I grew up with that show Fame. You remember Fame?
I remember Fame.
Oh my gosh.
Live forever. That's right. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So, my goal, when I was 8 years old or whatever, I was so consumed with that show. And I thought, man, I don't know what that is, but I want that.
Well, there was an energy there,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What kind of, were you what kind of school? I was 8 years old thinking, man, there's a high school out there where they're singing and playing and dancing and it spills out into the streets and there's, on top of taxi cabs. I grew up in New Jersey, so I knew New York, we would go, I was 35 miles outside of New York City. And I thought, man, that's gotta be magical. Actually, I have a really funny story with that, but we can get to it or not. But
sure. I think people love stories.
Well, it turns out, right. I mean, I really, really did sort of like think that was the be all end all. And fast forward to my undergraduate, graduate program at NYU. I did 2 degrees at NYU, everybody, and I literally finished paying them off 2 years ago. So yay for me.
Hey, congrats.
I did not get saved by any loan forgiveness.
Hey, I'm all about paying for what you sign up for,
Yeah, well, I paid all right. I paid. I looked at my parents when it was all said and done, and I said, what did you have me sign my name to? They said, it's because of that education you got, young lady. It's where you are today. My parents didn't go to college. I was, I was the beginning of all that. So it was a huge, exactly. Right. It was a huge accomplishment. So anyway, I'm finishing up, or I'm doing my graduate program, and this incredible woman that I do need to track down. If there's any listener out there that can help me out with this, please do. Her name is Sylvia Golson, and she came into NYU. I'm going to say this was 96. Yes, 96. And she was just this super vibrant music educator, string player.
Nice.
And she took things over at the School of Ed, and I had done my undergraduate in the College of Arts and Sciences with a music emphasis. And she said, I played at a friend's recital, a friend's graduation recital. And the woman came, Sylvia Golson came, Dr. Golson, and said to me, what are you doing next year? You're graduating from College of Arts and Sciences. And I said, I'm not really sure. And long story short, she said, why don't you stay at NYU and move into the School of Ed for your graduate degree? Mm-hmm. And I had already started teaching private violin lessons at my parents' house in New Providence, New Jersey. That started out as like a little, I had a couple little students. Right. I was 19 years old. I would take the train out of the city, teach my couple of students. If they showed up, I would get my groceries, and then my father would drive me back into the city at night. So I knew like most kids, I think definitely in the 80s, like, I don't want to teach. I don't want anything to do with it. Yeah. I'm going to play my violin. I'm going to do this.
That's most kids now. I mean, a lot. I mean, there's a lot. There's like, I never, and then even when I was at the university, there were kids that are like, oh, I'm not teaching. And then guess what?
Yeah.
They're teaching. And some of them are teaching public school now, so it does happen.
I think, I don't know. I feel like there's less of a stigma now. I felt like, there was that saying, well, those who can, and those who can't teach. I hate that stupid line.
I know.
And I actually started out at University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana my freshman year as a performance major. And I was like, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. I was not ready for it for 1,000 reasons. I mean, I think part of it was I wasn't ready to stop learning the academic side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, it was going straight into conservatory. And I mean, some people are built to do that at 17, 18, 19. I don't think I was. Yeah. And I also, I grew up in New Jersey. And I was ready to get away from home. I was like, I need to get the heck out of Dodge. So I was the youngest, the only girl, very, very religious household. I ended up at University of Illinois. Yeah. And the things the kids and I've talked to the kids about this. You have to think, what kind of school do you want? Do you want a city school? Do you want to be, a campus? I went out to the University of Illinois, which is a huge state school. And one of the things they told us on tour was it's the largest Greek campus in America. I don't know if it still is, but I thought, that's not going to bother me. Well, guess what? 5 weeks in, my friends were either pledging sororities or going home on the weekends or both. And I was 17 hours from home. Yeah. And I got to tell you, I come from an Italian American family. I started to really miss the food, the home, the Sunday brunches, all of it. So, and it was the end of the 80s, and the 80s in New York City, and my parents that wanted no business of me trying to apply to a place like NYU when I was in high school. Yeah. And after that year, they literally said to me, we don't care where you go. Just stop crying. Just please stop crying.
We want you to be happy.
So they let me transfer, and I ended up at NYU.
Wow.
So Sylvia Golson walks in. So I was, now this is end of 3 years at NYU. Sylvia Golson walks into NYU and she says, why don't you stay? She says, I'm going to do this great thing, Christine. She says, I'm going to start a combined program with the School for Strings on 54th Street, which was the Suzuki School of America.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. It was Louise Barron, who was like, an icon in music education. She was one of the first people to help bring it over. She was a Juilliard grad a million years before that. She was 80 years old at the time. I was her last, it's a 2-year program. I was the last cohort that got Louise Barron for 2 years. It was, that woman took, and it was mostly Juilliard graduates at the time, or Juilliard students, I should say. And I was odd man out because I was this NYU kid. I did not play like them, right? Yeah. And oh my God, Charles, it was Monday nights. I think it was 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. I kid you not. And it was like, people like me. Actually, it was only me. And then it was a bunch of Juilliard graduates. And then there was a few people that were pros that maybe they had kids and they were going back, or they were pros and they wanted to supplement their income.
But it's that thing of, place yourself around those that are better than you, and you're just going to become better.
Well, yeah, I think so. I sweat it for a while because I was like, they're not gonna take they're not gonna take me.
How did they go?
How did the program go?
How did you do, and how did you feel?
So, oh my God. Well, so I took Sylvia Golson up, which was amazing. For a million reasons. Let's see how many reasons I can get to. But The School for Strings thing, I realized, so I come from, my grandfather was off the boat Italian. The rest of my family was, it was my great grandparents that came over.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather has always spoken broken English, and he was a house painter. And he, somewhere along the lines, there was this thing just about what he learned in the world from just observing people, people. And somehow I think I've picked that up through my family. So one of the things with the School for Strings with Louise Barron was that you had to observe other teachers. You had like an observation assignment in addition to the Monday night, like 4 hours.
Wow.
And I think it was like, I want to say it was maybe 3 hours a week. And I was assigned this teacher named Kristen Krause, young teacher, like literally 3 years older than me. And I would go in this little cramped studio, right? So this School for Strings is like a brownstone on 54th Street. And they had, I don't know what it had originally been, but they made it into basically a music school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're in these little rooms at little studios, and it's the, Suzuki style. It's, you got the teacher, you got the key with her violin, you got the piano, and then you've got this, the in and outs of these little kids with their parents. The parents are taking the notes because it's School for Strings. It is legit Suzuki.
Wow.
And I didn't grow up Suzuki. So this was fascinating to me because Suzuki had such a bad rap. I grew up, I think you and I talked about this. Like I was 9, it was public school.
Yeah.
The woman that put the violin in my hand, I actually reconnected with her when I got the job here at Roosevelt after not having any contact with her for over 30 years.
That's amazing.
So I was the public school kid, and then and now, starting at 9, what do we say is late?
Right.
For
right,
strings,
for sure.
right? Oh,
yeah.
It's late, right? When do you start? You start when you're like 4 or 5, ideally, right? If you're going to have a go at it as like a violinist,
a soloist, or
right?
Performer.
So I go to School for Strings and I'm watching these babies, literally babies coming in, and they're doing bum 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 ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. I was like, oh my God, what is happening?
And
right
on the 1/16 size violins,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and and the parent is sitting there writing the notes, and then there's the recitals. It was and I found it fascinating. What I didn't realize, Charles, is the other kids, students, not kids, people like me,
right.
The Juilliard kids, oops, we're not going to their observations. But I was, and I found it fascinating. And so at the end of the lessons, I would sit there with Kristen and I would just ask her questions. I was fascinated by the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it all changed for me, because it was like, it wasn't just, music, right? Music. I love music.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you think about the art of teaching and how different people learn, oh my God, it's so fascinating to me. Just education in general, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't realize I was the only one. So now fast forward a few months and I get a phone call, right? This is before the cell phones and everything else, right? This is the late 90s. And it's Kristen Krause. And she says to me, listen, Christine, I knew she was pregnant. It was obvious she was pregnant. She said, I'm pregnant with twins. And, it's her first kids. She said, I teach at this incredible school in Englewood, New Jersey. And I teach with my best friend who basically runs it. Her name's Amelia Gold. And I need to take leave at least for a year. She said probably longer if I can, because she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Sure. She said, I've never seen you teach. I have never seen you teach, but you're always there for observations, which again, I didn't realize I was not the norm. I thought everybody was doing. She said, and you always ask great questions. So I decided to go out and see this school in Englewood, New Jersey, which is literally, if you leave Manhattan, it is like the first stop. It's, it's like it's called the Palisades Parkway. So it's like you do the reverse commute. Everybody's driving into the city.
That's good.
You're the George Washington Bridge and you're leaving the city. And I pull up, and Charles, oh my God. And I'm a public school kid. I come from public school. It's this beautiful house. I think it was the I'm going to get, please don't let this be wrong. It's the Morrow Lindbergh house. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember Charles Lindbergh, right? Yeah. The airplane, right? The famous pilot.
Yeah.
I want to say maybe it was, I'm going to get this wrong. Sister-in-law,
Okay.
the Morrows. Anyway, beautiful house, right? And it's got a lower school and an upper school. And I walk in and there's this woman who's, like I said, a few years older than me, much taller than me. And this is Amelia Gold, a presence. Like you need to have her on this show.
Okay.
Amelia, I can't even imagine. One of the most musical, one of the most charismatic people. And she would crack me up. Like she's super like fast and witty. And she would say these really fun, she would always make references to the 80s, right? And now it's only the late 90s. I think Amelia was 25 and I was 22.
Okay.
And it was a 3rd grade violin class that she would teach 4 mornings a week at 7:20.
Wow.
Then she would go to the upper school, do a 4th grade, like a violin ensemble. And then throughout the day, there was group lessons, private and group lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Fridays, it was full orchestra, which literally these little 6th graders doing full orchestra.
Wow.
Like real full orchestra. And I came home from that first day and I said to my then partner at the time, I said, I want this job so badly. I feel like I'm gonna be sick. Like I just want it so badly. And I had this crazy performance anxiety, which was understandable, I think, considering some of the other, just growing up, not being a Suzuki kid,
Sure.
right? Doing the whole New Jersey Youth Symphony thing and always feeling like I just wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough. Like if I was in the back of the 2nd violin section, like yay for me.
Yeah. I'm right with you on that.
Yeah, that's right. Cause we connected on that too. It was like, I worked so hard, man.
Yep.
So, my violin teacher at the time, God bless him, this guy named Larry Johnson, in New York City. And he says to me, listen to me, Christine. Cause I said, I'm going to have to play for her. Like I'm going to have to, and Amelia was a Juilliard graduate. And I thought, oh man, here we go. I'm going to have to perform in front of her and I'm going to lose it. And so Larry says to me, Christine, here's the plan. Get there early before because I had to be there for the 7:20 class, and ask her if you can go practice warm up in one of the adjacent classrooms. He said, just go in the classroom, close the door and just warm up and play. He said, because even if you screw it up when you're in front of her, she'll have heard you warm up.
There you
and
go.
She'll be able to.
That's a good strategy.
And I got to tell you, it's funny. I don't think she asked me to play. I think she heard me.
She didn't need to. She didn't need to hear you because she heard you.
And we never talked about it. Although I brought it up in something I wrote because I kind of wrote a short story about us recently. Because I'm taking my group on tour to New York next month, and we're going to start the tour as doing a side-by-side at the Elizabeth Morrow School with Amelia, who's now like one of the heads of the school, like head of the performing arts. I mean, and still like, and every kid in the school now plays an instrument. Like I said, she's a force. You got to meet her. But and that was the beginning of it. It was 6 years of assisting Amelia, again, who is like very close in age, kind of like a big sister.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know, and here's the other thing about Amelia. Her mom is like this incredible philanthropist and fundraiser. And Amelia could get up, in her early 20s, could get in front of a room of people and just, it was like dazzling. Mm-hmm. It's funny because my son is 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
And a few years ago, she does this incredible summer program. A few years ago, I went out there for the summer program, and Amelia is doing the concert, and she gets on the microphone, and my little, 5-year-old looks at me and goes, "I love her."
Aww.
I'm like, "What do you love?" He's like, "The microphone." I was like, "Man, you couldn't have said the music. It's the microphone." Wow. But she's just, and she could handle things. I mean, Charles, like the hardest. I mean, this is a very prestigious private school in Englewood, New Jersey. And we were young teachers, and parents would come and they'd, have concerns or whatever. And Amelia could just handle it. Like, I mean, she could take any situation and it was like diffuse it. And I just observed, like, oh my God, right? Oh my God. So anyway, so then from there, learned, watched how she handled the program, watched how she did a summer program. I was doing my private students there. I had my own private studio in New Jersey, still at my parents' house. So Sylvia Golson then in the midst of all this. So I say to my parents, I want to take this job. My parents, and I said, but it's going to mean I'm going to have to, my second year of grad school is going to have to be part-time. So I'm going to have to do 3 years of grad school. My parents said, well, that's nice, Christine, because guess what? If you take this job, we're not giving you any more money. And you're going to be paying for your own New York City apartment, which, by the way, I had a great apartment on 11th Street between 1st and 2nd for $1,333, and it was rent stabilized.
I wonder what that is now.
Oh, forget it. It was a hole in the wall, but man, at 20 years old, I thought it was the greatest thing. Sure. And then I turned 30 and I was like, this place is terrible. So Sylvia, has me going and doing that graduate program. And then she decides you're going to start a string project in one of the public schools in New York City. So I was doing Elizabeth Morrow School in the morning. I was doing my classes, and then I'm doing this string project. And let me tell you something, that string project, that earned me my first stripes. It was rough. Yeah, it was rough. And it was so like going from Elizabeth Morrow School to PS whatever. I can't remember. It was in Chelsea. It was crazy. And doing the whole thing with Sylvia Golson. So comes time for student teaching, right? And so they made some special thing for me so that I could use the Elizabeth Morrow School for my elementary school student teaching. Nice. But then they say to me, well, what do you want to do for secondary, Christine? What do you want to do for your student teaching? And I said, I want to go to the LaGuardia High School for the Performing Arts, which is the school that Fame is based on. And they're like, okay. So Charles,
you lived a dream.
I did.
Wow.
I did. And another incredible woman, her name is Dr. Paula Washington, and she's still out there. She's retired from public teaching, but that's another great person for you. She did an incredible doctorate on how playing chamber music affects your brain, your brain chemistry, and lifts your mood. And I mean, anybody that has ever played chamber music knows that that's absolutely true, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's chamber music is where it's at. And so did that. And then somewhere in the mix, I'm sitting there it's now time for conducting 101 at NYU, right? In grad school. And we all show up. And I kid you not, Charles, in walks this gentleman named Jonathan Strasser. He's got this briefcase. He's got his suit and tie, and he puts his briefcase down and he starts talking, and he says something like, and he's got spectacles. I'm not even going to say glasses, spectacles. And he's like, students, he said, I woke up at 5 a.m. I had my coffee. I did this, I did that. I studied my scores. I made sure that all my handouts were ready. I put them together. I put them in my briefcase. I packed my briefcase. I took the blah, blah, blah subway down to make sure that I was here at such and such time, and da, 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 da. And I did all that. And so like, we're all just kind of like, whoa. And he's super intense. And he goes, and I've done that every day for the last 30 years. He said, and the day that I stop doing it will be my last day doing this.
Wow.
And guess what? He was not an NYU professor. He was, if you look at the movie Fame, he is the guy conducting in that movie.
Oh, wow.
Because he was the teacher. He was the actual conducting teacher at LaGuardia, who the like Stokowski or whatever the guy with the white beard is based on, was this guy. And he's in the TV show too. There's moments in the TV show where you see kind of this like short guy with sort of,
that's crazy.
conducting. That's Jonathan Strasser. He was LaGuardia High School for the Performing Arts for like 30 years conducting. And he did another group called the Intercity Orchestra or something. And he did Manhattan School of Music. He was on faculty for their pre-college. Like these were the people I got to rub shoulders with.
That's really cool.
And he was not only just my conducting teacher, or professor at the time, he mentored me way far after that. He was actually Amelia Gold's teacher growing up in Manhattan School of Music. So there was all these connections. He unfortunately passed away about, I want to say 9 years ago. Okay. But just an incredible human being. And he when he put me on the podium the very first time, stopped the entire room and said, "Did you all see that?" And I'm like, some punk 22-year-old. I have no idea what. And they all look at him and they're like, "Yeah." And they're like, and he said, "You completely changed the minute you got on that podium." He was like, "There's something about this." And I'm not going to say, listen, there was far greater. But I don't know. It was something that I feel like I've been able to take to. Then I get to so 6 years at Elizabeth Morrow School, and then to me it was kind of time to go.
Sure.
Right. I was ready.
Sometimes you just kind of know.
Right. Right.
It doesn't always have to be anything bad that happened. It's just you're just kind of ready to move on.
Yeah. Well, I was definitely the assist. That was the assistant. I did a good job. And twice during those 6 years, Amelia went on maternity leave, and I was fortunate enough to take it over while she was on maternity leave. And it was a huge program then. Forget it. Now it's a whole other level. But I remember saying to her, like, because she was looking for who was going to take over the first maternity leave, and finally I sheepishly said, "Well, I could do it." She was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, really, I could do it." And I think I surprised her, and I think I surprised myself too, that I was able to do it. And then I stayed on, and then 2 years later, she was pregnant with her second child, and then after that, I thought, okay, I think I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I wasn't planning on it. I thought I was 20. Oh my gosh, 29.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe one more year. And then one of the parents, who was also a colleague at the school, comes in with her son's violin case for a lesson. It was like a May, June. It was early summer lesson. And she says to me, "Hey, Christine, did you see the posting in the New York Times education section this weekend?" Because back then, that's what we did. We looked in the newspaper.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I said, no. She said, "There's a posting for orchestra director in Nyak, New York." So I'd always heard. Have you ever heard of Nyak, New York?
No.
Oh my God, it's an incredible place. So So yes, next time you're in New York, you got to take a little drive up to Nyak. It's this gorgeous. It's literally called the Village of Nyak.
Oh, the village.
And it's one of these. It's like it is literally like a village. There's no big business in the town. There's and it is on the Hudson River. And it's got these gorgeous old Victorian houses and this downtown that is just as sweet.
Sounds
and
like
charming.
a Hallmark movie.
It absolutely is. I'm serious. If you look up pictures of Nyak, New York later, I'm telling you, and it's, just a gorgeous, gorgeous town. And she says, and I knew about it because one of my other mentors at the school, there's an older woman, her name's Jan Dietz. And she did general music at Elizabeth Morrow School and piano. And she was, I'm going to say 60s when I got there. Jan is still going, by the way.
Wow.
And she monster pianist. And but she lived in Nyak, so she would always talk about Nyak. But I'd never gone. I just heard about it. And so Jan, so I'm like, okay, Nyak, New York. All right, so let's go check it out. So my then partner and I, we go for a drive on a Sunday through, and I think I'd already sent in the application or whatever. And I tell people when we drove into that, I'm going to get teary. When we drove onto Broadway, which is the downtown, the very first time, it felt like, it felt like I was coming home.
Oh, wow.
It's just, it felt like I was putting on my slippers, like I just gotten home. And I got the job.
Yay.
I got the job, and now I was sweating it because it was summer. I had to. You never want to leave a program that you love in a lurch.
It's hard.
And I had a friend at the time. Oh, I still have a friend. Her name's Ann Winsey, and she and I did the Orff Teacher Certification, another incredible program in New York City with the Trevor Day School. I don't know if it's still going on, but we worked with these women. Denai Gagne was one of them. The other one was Judy Thomas. Turns out Judy Thomas had taught in Nyak, their general music program, for 30 years.
Wow.
So I called Judy right away and I said, Judy, and she said, gave me some pointers, and she said, "Hey, Christine, there's a string teacher there. She's been there for 30 something years. I've taught with her for a million years." She said, She's no joke. She's like, she means business. Her name's Claudette Jimerson. And I'm telling you right now, Christine, when you go in for that interview, you better dress to the nines. Wow. Charles, I dressed to the nines.
Uh-huh.
I went into that interview. It was the then head of the music department, or the supervisor for music for the district. By the way, the district is 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 high school.
Okay.
And so it was the music supervisor. It was the choir director at the time, Drusilla Pluhowski. She goes by Drew. It was Claudette Jimerson, the longtime strings teacher, and her role was she did the middle school and one of the 3 elementaries.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of who else, a parent and an admin. And it was a great interview. And they said to me, Drew said to me, if this program at Elizabeth Morrow School is so incredible, why would you want to leave?
Right.
And I said, I'm ready to have my own program. I want to do it. You get to that point.
Yeah.
And I mean, that place, I can cry when I think about Elizabeth Morrow School too. I mean, supported me and made me who I am. And the school itself has so much love, like the way they handle kids. I mean, I've been public school ride or die, for better or worse. I public school kid, and 22 of my 28 years have been teaching in public school.
Yep.
But man, those 6 years at the Elizabeth Morrow School, I mean, just literally made me who I was in so many ways. So I walk into Nyak. So then, and the department chair at the time, he was kind of like giving me not a little bit, giving me the business. I think I probably said something like the holiday concert, and he was like, the winter concert. I was like, oh yes, you're right, the winter concert. This is now 2000. This is year 2003.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, and so I get offered the job. And again, this is like, I think for me, like my life has been about mentorship, and specifically the women that have mentored me. So this woman, Claudette Jimerson, man, again, can't think about her without crying. She is now literally like my adopted mother. So Claudette just turned 78 this week. She's probably not going to be happy that I said that on so publicly, but and I'm going to be 51. So you can do the math. So this was her last 2 years. And I thought, man, this woman is going to look at me and think, who do you think you are? Right? Like, that's what I was waiting for. And it was so incredibly the opposite, I mean, she took me under her wing. So my gig was going to be the 2 elementaries in the high school. And I didn't know that until I got in there. And I thought, well, elementary school is my jam. I just spent 6 years. And I was like, high school, no, thank you. Because here's my high school experience from New Providence, New Jersey. Football.
Right.
Nobody could, my orchestra, literally, I could have fit my orchestra in this room. In this office. And I was like, I was like, oh my God, football and people screaming Gero down the hallway again. I'm like, it's like PTSD. I take the job, and I'll never forget, Charles, the first freaking day walking into that school behind these giant football players with their jerseys. And I'm thinking, here we go. Somehow I'm back here, right? I'm back here. I don't know what it was, but I realized that I speak a language that I did not realize I speak, and it's called the language of teenager. I don't know why.
A special person.
Well, yeah. I mean, no, middle school takes a real special person.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my God, like they laughed at my jokes. They did what I told them to do. For the most part, I mean, there was a learning curve. I was 29, so I was like the hip young one, the new one. Claudette Jimerson spent a minimum of an hour a week on the phone with me. And she taught me everything. She was a small town.
Yeah.
She taught me who the teachers were, what of those 3 elementary schools, the middle school and the high school, what each school, climate was like, what the different administrators were like, how to handle things. She knew so many so many families that she had taught. She was teaching the kids of her first students at that time. And she just never once did she feel like threatened or whatever by me. She just was like, yeah, this is great. So 2 years in, right, she's decided it's her retirement year and she's ready to go ish. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying to everybody, what are we going to do for Claudette? What are we like? Claudette's, Claudette's
big replacement.
And they're all like, we'll give her, no, I'm thinking like, how are we going to celebrate her? Oh. And they're all like, I don't know. We'll take her out to dinner. I'm like, no, we are not taking her out to dinner. No. I'm like, we need to do something big. And they're like, well, what are you talking about, Christine? Like, what do you have in mind? By the way, the band director at the time, he was about 20 years my elder and a consummate professional and veteran teacher, Doug Bish. And so, he was also the department chair. He's like, what do you have in mind? And Drew was the same thing. And I said, I think we should do a big concert. Cool. Like do like an all district thing. We'll start with the little guys and we'll build it up and we'll do it in the gym at the high school. We'll call it, no, actually we didn't call it anything the first year. I said, and it'll be this big send off and we'll have some surprises and we'll have kids get up here and there and do speeches. Yeah. Well, they literally dubbed it the Kleenex concert because it ended up being this, like, I mean, the whole community came together into this gym to celebrate her. And she did get to speak at the end and I spoke and you would have thought, right, after that year, peace out. She's going to retire. She's done. No.
She did.
1 hour a week still on the phone. Gosh.
Yeah.
No, like literally, Charles, now.
Oh.
Still.
Wow.
10 years in Nyak. 5 years out here in Bellevue, Washington. She would talk to me every Friday as I drove from, it's a killer drive in the traffic. And then now, usually Sunday mornings, 1 hour.
Oh, amazing.
And we talk through all of it.
That's so great.
Talk through all of it. You know what else that happened? She ended up running for the school board. And then you know what else happened after she won in like a landslide? She then became, I think 2 years later, the president of the school board.
Nice.
Can you imagine? So
that's the best kind of have.
The retired orchestra teacher.
Wow.
Orchestra teacher. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when does that happen?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I used to walk right into the superintendent's office. Oh, Christine's here. Oh. Very different than like when you're in a huge city district. Oh, yeah. The superintendent's like, I always think of the superintendent as the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain.
Well,
it's like he's there somewhere, but you're not. So
that's so cool.
So yeah. So still to this day. And then the choir director, Drew Puhowski, Drew also a veteran. She turns 71 recently, so 21 years old. We basically shared our teaching room together. We had a teaching room and our offices were right next to each other for 10 years. And she became my big sister. So Claudette was like my mom, literally, and Drew like my sister. And we you know how important it is to be able to collaborate, right?
Sure. Yeah.
To be able to and Drew, anything. We did it all. We did Carmina Burana. We did the Beethoven Choral Fantasy. Oh my gosh, so many things. Yeah. And we had a blast. And Drew is one of these women still to this day. Like Drew's going to conferences. She retired and started a community chorus in Nyak.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, like has no thought about stopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, just this idea of like, she wants to just keep doing music. She wants to keep learning. And that was the other thing, like always learning. And then in terms of feedback, like always the greatest feedback, it was from Drew. Anyway, so and so how did I get here? And then yes, and now it's year. So five at Newport High School in Bellevue, Washington, which is an incredible place. Mm-hmm. I found out about Roosevelt. This is kind of funny story. So my partner at the time was like, hey, would you ever move out to Seattle? And I don't know if I told you this the night we met because my answer was no.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Yeah. Okay.
What I did for love. But to go back, my brother moved out here in 1990. He's a drummer. I don't say percussionist. He's drum set. He is drum set only, and he's amazing. But he came out here to be part of the grunge rock scene. He's 10 years older than me, and he's incredible. He still plays like, he's off the charts.
Wow.
Amazing musician. And so he wouldn't let me come out here till I turned 21. His joke was, "It's not like New York City, Christine. You can't walk in with a fake ID." Right. Not that I ever did that in New York.
No,
never. No, it never happened. Right. New York in the 90s, it was a different place. What can I say?
Yeah.
So I didn't come out until 1995.
Okay.
And I came out here and immediately fell in love. It was beautiful and like the mountains, and it was summer. That's the other thing. Hey, everybody, if you're going to go to Seattle,
go in the summer.
July 5th to the end of September. Anything else, good luck to you.
Okay. Yeah.
They literally say July 5th because at first, I don't know, because it's like after they call June here, January.
Wow.
January. Yes, because you never know. You never know.
So my brother always you've been at Roosevelt for how many years now?
This is year 7.
Okay.
Year 7.
Okay.
So so I when I was looking at places, I had done the National Orchestra Cup, which is funny because that's what we're going out to New York to do in a couple of I think next month.
Great.
And this little chamber orchestra that I started from scratch at Nyak, we went, oh my gosh, whatever year that was, 2010, and we won. And you know how these things go. It's a cup trophy, and if you win the cup, there's a little plaque that goes on the trophy, and it has the name of the orchestra, the city or the city and state, and then the director. So I bring the cup trophy home for the weekend because it was like I'm looking at it, and 2 years above us it says Roosevelt High School, Seattle, Washington, Anna Edwards. And it was a long weekend in October. And out here, it's Indigenous Peoples Day. Out here, you don't get the day off, but on the East Coast now, thankfully, they call it Italian American Heritage Day or something, as opposed to what it used to be. And so, rightfully so, should not be. So we come out here, and I had emailed Anna Edwards, and the funny thing is that she said she still remembers what I wore that day, and she said, "I knew the minute I met you that you were going to be the person to take this over."
Wow.
Now, I sat in the back of this room, and Charles, when you come visit at some point,
I would love to.
You come into this orchestra room, and you look up, and it is literally a wall, like it's trophies.
Wow.
And usually you see that in band rooms, not necessarily.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I sat in the back, and she was having a full orchestra rehearsal. Now, who gets full orchestra in this country? Like the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I would say, what is the percentage of schools that have a string program? It's not many.
10% or 10%, maybe.
And then of that, right. And then of that, who has full orchestra? Like literally, and I say that to the kids, 1% of 1% is my guess. And I sit in the back of the symphony orchestra, and I listen to this full orchestra rehearsal, and I think, oh my God, this is public school. Look at the history of this place.
Yeah.
And listen to these kids play. Anna ended up, she was on this trajectory that she decided to go get her doctorate at University of Washington. She did an incredible dissertation on women and conducting. Definitely worth checking. And that's another person you should meet. She's got this database of underrepresented composers.
Oh, cool.
Oh, it's off the charts.
Yeah.
It's off the charts. Anna's database, everybody check it out.
Treasures, I'm sure. Great
yeah,
music.
oh my God. And everything. And like many living composers, and then and then composers from centuries ago.
Wow.
And everything in between. And super thorough. I mean, her work is incredible. So basically we knew when it came time, and then it's been year 7, and I've worked with some incredibly great people. Scott Brown, who is the band director here for, I want to say 34 years. Scott, I hope that's right. Literally, won Ellington 4 times.
Yeah.
And I mean, a consummate professional and just an incredible human being. Again, I can't really think about Scott without getting teary. I had this incredible choir colleague that I landed with, Dr. G. Marie Kent.
Cool.
I only got 4 years with the two of them, and they were the veterans.
Okay.
And they moved on.
You're
I knew
starting
Scott was
kind of you're the next generation.
Well, I wasn't really ready for it, to be honest. I knew Scott was going. G. Marie, I was that happened sort of last minute, and but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then in walks this complete dynamo that's across the hallway. Her name is Hannah Morey. She was teaching, co-teaching at Mount Si High School, which Mount Si High School is east of here and has an unbelievable music program. But Hannah walks in, and it's just like, you just know.
Yeah.
Does it age?
So how many
means
students
nothing.
you guys have involved? Like, how many do you have in orchestra?
Well, we took a dip after COVID.
Sure.
So we're on the upswing. It's not huge right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's 100-ish. When I was at Newport, I think at my highest I was like way over I was like 230.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, everything's kind of on the up and up right now, I would say. It's kind of bringing back. And then you have is that 2 classes, 3 classes, 4 classes? How many classes do you have?
Okay. It is 9th grade string orchestra.
Okay.
And that's everybody.
Sure.
I don't care. It doesn't matter if you're
everybody.
The top of all state or if you're literally just learning to hold an instrument. And it's an incredible experience because they're coming from different middle schools.
Right.
So this is their 1 year to like get their footing. And if they're amazing, they get some leadership skills. And, if they're more intermediate, they're rubbing shoulders with some, more advanced players.
Yeah.
I always do 1 full orchestra piece that is the entire program at the end of each concert. So at the end of each concert, they are always playing 1 full orchestra, and they are sitting with the upperclassmen. I have a chamber orchestra, which is it is our non-audition group for upperclassmen, so grades 10, 11, 12, and I love that group. I always say to them, back in the day, I would have been chamber orchestra.
Right.
Maybe I would have gotten into symphony my senior year, but I was, it's the group that is like, I've got my soccer stars, I've got, my dancers, I've got kids that are doing all sorts of other things. And then I have kids that are on their way to symphony that like, they'll get, they're going to get there. This is like their step in.
Sure.
And then, so at the end of freshman year, they can either decide chamber or they can try an audition for symphony and see how it goes. So the symphony orchestra, now I love how we do it here. It's, we run our wind ensemble. So our top wind band, the same period.
Yeah.
And, we meet 5 days a week, all of our classes. So Monday, Tuesday, they're with me. Thursday, Friday, the winds are with Hannah. And Wednesdays, we have shortened days because we have shortened periods because that's teacher meeting day.
Sure.
So we alternate our Wednesdays.
Do you get
so
your full orchestra
50-50.
twice a week?
What?
You get full orchestra twice a week?
Well, sometimes 3.
That is
and then tonight,
that is the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%,
And I think that's where you and I got into this whole big thing, right? Because we were talking about that one clinic about like, why can't we all just get along? It was band and orchestra directors.
That's
and I
my
like
colleague.
Yeah. I lost my mind.
Yep.
They were so lovely.
Yeah. And we're gonna have both of them on the podcast coming up in a few months whenever they're not busy. But yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Let me give you some impressions. No, they were amazing. My thing is, man, like I've seen it go both ways. I have. And here's the deal. Your success, if you are my choir or band colleague, does not negate the success of my program, my students.
That's the thing.
We should be inspiring each other, right?
All here for the same reason, all for the same purpose.
Absolutely, which is what I feel about my colleagues right now, right? And that's a special sauce. It does not always happen, right? I feel that way about my theater department. I feel that way about, right now we have an incredible vocal jazz teacher. I feel that way about Hannah Morey. I feel that way about our jazz directors, Deb Shaw and Michael Van Bever. We are all working as hard as possible to create the best music, give the best experience to these students. And we are working shoulder to shoulder to each other, right? If we have beef, there's rare beef. But if there's beef, it's like for me, it's got to happen New York style.
Air it out.
Face to face, and then we hug.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do not send me an email. I do not want the email.
Yeah, no.
I want to talk. I want to communicate.
That's
right?
Fantastic. Yes.
Because we always have to look through the lens of what's best for kids, right? What is best for kids? And man, if we can give them, and I say to the kids, I don't think we always understand, but I try to put it forward, like what you have here, and God bless you in a public school, what you have here at Roosevelt, you might, unless you're going to a conservatory, my friends, you ain't going to get it again. Yeah. So every single flipping minute, you should be like, I tell them, you should be running from the period before. Right. And I say that to the kids that aren't even in my class. I say it to the band kids. I say it to whoever, like, you should be ready, because high school feels so long when you're in it. But you and I know it is a flash in the pan.
Yeah. You get these seniors that are, trying to, like, there's some of them that's like, I just can't wait to go here, get out of here. And it's like, no, like, you don't believe me, but someday you will want to be back where you are right now, because you won't have this experience again.
And you know what? When they normally come, here's my product placement. Could I have a sponsor? It's amazing to me how soon they do come back, though, Charles. I don't know if you feel the same way. Like, literally, a lot of times it's Thanksgiving of their freshman year. Yeah. And it doesn't take long.
For sure.
They have some conversations in their dorm rooms or with their friends, and they realize, holy cow, what I had at Roosevelt, what I had with my high school, almost nobody got that. Right? Yeah. So they're like, oh, Gero, seriously. And I'm like, no, listen to me. Make every minute count, because once it's done, it's done.
Exactly.
You go on to other things, and you will look back on high school. And I love my academic friends. I love my academic colleagues, but you're not going to look back and be like, that was the most amazing test I ever took. What are you going to remember? The music. And Charles, what are you going to really remember? The trips.
Yeah. And the experience, just friends. And those are the experiences you remember, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The friends. And that's what they say. And this is where I think my forte has been. Like I said, going back to speaking teenager, I wanted very much, because I grew up in such a competitive environment. Like, literally, like I said, my high school program was small. I sat for years, first stand of first violin in my high school orchestra, next to a boy who was much better than me, 2 years older than me. He wouldn't even say hello to me. Wow. He was up here at New Jersey Youth Symphony, and I was down here. Literally sat next to me 4 years and would not speak to me. I can remember the one conversation. I think it was me saying, I like your sweater. And he was like, thanks.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And I still have the hurt, right? And I never, ever wanted that. I was like, hey, we're going to do this in a way in which you feel accountable to each other. And it's work. I don't know. I don't know. A little this, a little that, a little Amelia, a little Drew, a little Claude. I don't know.
Yeah.
But a little Pat Diamond, oh my God, a lot Pat Diamond, the first woman that put the violin in my hands that I got to reconnect with.
It's amazing what your mentors
oh
do
my God.
For you,
Incredible. And let me tell you, the word they use, Charles, which just makes me want to cry every time, is they say it's like a family. The orchestra is like a family.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the most important thing. I mean, we talk about it all the time, the community that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now the community that, I feel like I was just getting my sea legs on, and then COVID hit in this gig.
Sure.
And I just started getting my sea legs on, and then I had some, other stuff that came up for me, unfortunately.
Sure. Yeah.
And now I'm like, we play assemblies. Like, and I say to them, like, we are bringing the school community together.
That's
whether
important.
This year was for Veterans Day and MLK Junior Day. And it's like the power of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing, right?
2 days after the election, to be the kids that get on stage and play October by Eric Whitacre as like as like a we'll just get rid of that, as a like a meditative almost piece before we start, and literally seeing faculty crying.
Yeah, that's awesome. The power is there.
The power of music. And I think that's the thing. What makes a 21st century learner successful? Creativity, bottom line.
Right.
That's how we're, and where do we get it? Where's the one way that, thank God, I don't think they're going to be able to AI us. Charles, please don't let them AI. It's like, it is, you know, when we were doing things online, I don't know if you did, but when we were doing things online, I know we probably have to wrap up in a minute, but like, I could not believe how bad they sounded online.
Oh,
like
it was the worst. I mean, just the experience and not having.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But individually, and I thought to myself, this kid doesn't play that bad. This kid knows how to count rhythms. And then I realized, oh my God, they learned all of it, not just because of practice or whatever, but because they were in the room with each other. Oh,
sure. Yeah.
And I never stopped to think all of this is getting absorbed because they're sitting next to somebody playing a dotted quarter note and an eighth note, and it's right. I'm like, you know, dang, I thought it was me.
Nope. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Well, it is. This has been like the stories. You have great stories, and it was just neat to hear all that it took to get you where you are now, and those people that just influenced you. You know? Yeah. Hey, we didn't get to talk about this piece. So we're going to go to we're doing this tour in New York, and if anybody is in the New York area, March 1st, it's the National Orchestra Cup. It's at Alice Tully Hall, Lincoln Center. The tickets, if they're not on sale now, they should be probably by this weekend. We're going to play two movements of the William Dawson Negro Folk Symphony. William Dawson was born in 1899. Okay.
The piece premiered at Carnegie under Leopold Stokowski in 1934, was literally heralded as like the new American sound. And then, Charles, it got buried.
Wow.
And really didn't get resurrected.
When did it come back
around
now?
2020. Around 2020.
Wow.
And there's the woman who is like the scholar on him. Turns out she lives in Tacoma, I think, just south of here. So she's going to be working with the kids. But she's got a book out now and an article. I can send it to you. She's incredible. His story is unbelievable. Just like the Florence Price story is unbelievable. This gentleman's story needs to be known, and his music needs to be played.
Okay. Well, yeah. Please share that with me. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, thanks.
Well, thank you so much.
See you at ASTA. Will I see you at ASTA?
I will be at ASTA for sure.
All right.
So
we'll hang out.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Everybody, thank you again for. Yeah, I have. Thank you, Christine, for being here, and everybody for the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. This is episode 85, and we will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
All right, bye.
Thank you for tuning in. For resources and more information, visit orchestrateacher.net.